And welcome back. So in today's video, I'm going to do a opaque color layer on top of this sepia tone underpainting. Really lovely composition that I'm doing for a client. And so the photograph that I'm using as a reference is a old 1970s Polaroid, which has a very sepia tone quality to it. So that's what I decided to do with this underpainting. So today I'm going to walk you through kind of my my palette and then some strategies as to get that first layer of opaque color down. So let's get started. Start off with my palette. I have ivory black, burnt umber, raw sienna, burnt sienna, raw sienna, ultramarine blue, cad red, cad yellow, and then titanium white. So I'm going to start by just kind of creating a base. So I'm going to start with my raw sienna. It's a very sepia tony kind of a deep rust color. And then to tone that down, I'm going to use that burnt umber, which is a very dark neutral yellow. That's going to tone that down quite a bit. And it is coming out a bit dark, so I'll lighten that up with a little bit of raw sienna, which is a light neutral yellow. And then I'm going to, so I'm gonna add a little bit of ivory black to this, just to a section. A little bit more burnt sienna, there we go. Alright, that is looking good as just kind of a base tone. And then I will add colors to this as I go. So I can just kind of tap into something and shift tones around as I need to. So go ahead and get started. Alright, so I'm going to go with my number 4, and I'm going to kind of tackle this background first. So let me see. So this is I don't want the background to be featured too highly, so I'm just going to make sure that everything is kind of loose and not too distracting. So get a little bit of that cad yellow in here. There we go. Get that to spread around. So I got a lot of odorless mineral spirits in here. The reason for that is so that it'll be nice and thin and go on really smoothly. So I'm kind of in the same color tone as the underpainting, which is fine. Because right now I'm just getting things wet So I want to create, I like losing this edge right here, but it is really lost. It is out in the wilderness, don't know what's happening, lost. Like season 8 of Lost. And that is not what I want. So I'm going to bring that edge back in. Kind of create a little bit more edges back here. Kind of adjust some of this tone as well. And I want to get this in really quickly because the mineral spirits dry really fast. And it's not like the liquid that's going to be very fatty. It is not fatty at all. It is the very definition of not fatty. It's like the Kate Moss of mediums. For those of you born after year 2000, look up Kate Moss. She was very thin. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna get into my white a little bit more. I think I'm gonna touch into that yellow and a hint of blue. And then a little bit more white. There we go. And all of this I'm just going to keep really thin and very loose. And I know there's some of you out there, it's like, oh, Ben, your painting is not loose. And you'd be right. This is loose for me though. Because I do me. I expect you to do you. And in my little brain, as I was teaching myself to paint, I wanted tight paintings. So that is what I taught myself to do. Is that the right way to paint? Is it the wrong way to paint? I tell ya, that needs to go up a little bit. Actually, this couch, talk about losing edges. I'm gonna add a little bit of red to this. Get this edge of the couch in. Oh. Came out a little bit too red. There we go. But when I decided for some strange and kind of manic reason back in the day that I wanted to be an artist and I was going to do everything I could to learn how to do that, I had a very specific kind of art that I wanted to do, which is very strange for a new beginning artist to be a snob about the type of art that they want to do. But, you know, you have the passions that you have, I'm certainly not going to apologize for it. And I see artists that struggle. I think because painting tightly is so hard, I see a lot of artists that want to paint tightly, that want to get things rendered and are having trouble with it, and then just kind of abandon the idea and then decide post hoc that they really want to do is be all loose. Even though the original dream was to paint something realistic. I say follow your dreams. If you want to be a realistic painter, don't let your own skills or the naysayers or the hard work or any of that stand in your way. Put in the hours. And it'll come to you eventually. Well, actually, no. You have to buy incredibly expensive online tutorials first. At least that's what I've seen. I didn't do that, so who knows? For only 5 easy payments. I'm sure those videos are very worthwhile. I'm just kidding. So I'm putting a few of these little touches into the background. And I'm not being too precious about anything. I'm just kind of moving stuff around. Deciding where my hard edges are going to be, where I want my softness to be. I don't want this guy to be too abstract. Because I want, if the family looks at this portrait, I want them to be able to be like, oh, I remember that painting that was up there. But I don't want people who aren't familiar, who didn't grow up with this. I don't want them to being able to, determine what this piece is or what the emotions it's trying to convey or whatever. This is not about this painting, it's about my painting, darn it. Pay attention to my work. That's kind of a whole other issue. Because I'm not the artist of this painting back here, I certainly don't want their work to be represented in such a way that it's not my work anymore. I'm just using a little bit of the titanium white and the yellow ochre. Great, just a few highlights in here. There we go. That looks like a painting in the background, doesn't it? Very slight color in there. Excellent. So, I might do some veils on that after everything's said and done. I'm not sure. And a little bit of that titanium red, and a little bit of that base mixture that I had made. I'm gonna start on this couch, and that's a little too much red. I'm just gonna start on the darkest parts. So this couch it's a little bit busy. It was the 70s, I don't blame them. They didn't know how tasteless they were. I grew up in the 90s, it wasn't that much better. Fashion. Things go in and out, but so I'm starting with just some of the darkest places in this couch, and I'm not worried about too much detail. I just want to kind of leave the eye. I want the viewer to kind of understand that this is a gaudy, busy couch without my painting being gaudy and busy. Oh, my client doesn't mind me saying that. That was my favorite couch. How dare you? Well, the beauty you find in your emotional attachment doesn't necessarily extend to those without that emotional attachment, and I'm okay with that. A little bit more brown in here. I'm paying attention to this area as well. Now, I didn't really do a video, not like this one, of the underpainting. I was really kind of afraid that the underpainting was just going to be boring. So I did a time lapse of that instead. So I'm not... But with that, that being said, I did do... So I started on the most intricate places, the faces and the hands, and then kind of worked out from there. And the reason I did it that way is I want to spend the most time on those integral parts. Because really, a project like this, my client is not going to be like, that couch came out beautifully if his father's face is looking stupid. White, a touch of yellow, and a touch of that raw sienna. And I'm not even washing off my brush at this point. I'm just adding more color on. And a little trick that I learned is when you do that, there's still those darker colors on my brush. So So I add that white, that light mixture, and then as I move away from the lightest part, my mixture that's on my brush is getting darker and darker. that means that I can start in my lightest section and then move out to my darker section. And I'm not having to dip back in. Well, I am right there because I'm getting back to the lights. But you don't have to like build up your brush. So you can just do it in just one. Like as few of brush, you have to touch down to your palette as least as possible. I'm gonna move down. Ooh, I'm actually gonna have to clean off my brush here. There's a lot of paint on there, so this will take me a moment. These hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. Sorry, a little jewel out there for you kids. Hope that doesn't get me a copyright violation on YouTube. I don't know how that works exactly. Do I own my own voice? That's so existential. Alright, so there's a little fuzzy pillow right there. I'm not gonna paint the individual hairs on it. Just kind of indicate that it's fuzzy. So I'm gonna do a little bit more red, a little bit more cad yellow. And then I'm gonna go to this pillow. A little bit more yellow. So I'm doing this very thinly. So I'm just adding a little bit of color. Because again, this pillow is not my focus, but my main focus is this gentleman right here. And this pillow is quite literally haloing him. So I want this to not be perfectly in realism, but I want it to be realistic enough to where it is not distracting from the realism that I am going to be putting into his features. So a little bit more white, a little bit more yellow, a touch of that red, and then just kind of because I'm not washing out my brush. I started off very light over on that side, but now, since I've kind of had the same brush going for a moment, I'm looking for darker and darker lights. And a little bit of white on there. Wasn't expecting that, but that's okay. White, Because I know my camera only does 20 minutes at a time, which is annoying. But it's a nice camera, so I'm not going to like be bitching at it too badly. But I'm hoping to get this in before it craps out on me. Alright, so I'm using this giant brush. I will be going in with a much smaller brush here in a moment. So now I have Jewel stuck in my head. Sorry you guys, I did this to you. And I didn't realize the significance of that. But I do now, so I'm so sorry. Alright, does that look like a shiny little pillow? I hope so. I'm gonna go in with a little bit of smaller brush and then get some of these little It's a push and a pull. So I push that lightness up. So now I'm pulling those little dark spots back down. I hope that camera's still going. It looks like it is. So when you have something like this, something that's very sheeny, something, well, actually it applies to like all sorts of stuff, but your midtones are going to be your most saturated. Since the darks have the least light on them, they're going to be a little bit muted. The light going to be the most muted, or at least the highlights are, because they're actually the color of the light source rather than the color of the item that is being highlighted. It's like I have all my values right, but why doesn't it look right? Well, maybe you have too much chroma in your highlights and not nearly enough in your midtones, which tends to happen. Alright, I think I'm gonna end this video right here. Hopefully everything recorded right. If it didn't, you'll never know, but so sorry about the technical difficulties, you guys, but I had a good time. So I got the couch done, rendered pretty well. Got the a little bit of wash of color on the wall back there. This pillow I think is looking really good. I might do a little bit of glaze, a little bit more chroma onto that at a later point, but as right now I think it's looking pretty good. It's certainly rendered well enough to halo my main figure, which is going to be this section right here. So I'm really happy with that. So. Well, sorry about the technical difficulties, but that's the way that life goes sometimes, and I hope y'all enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and continue working on this guy. Y'all can go work on your own paintings, and I will see you next time. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. Oh, yeah. Not yours, they are my own.